The morning sun shone bright through the glass walls of the human space station, floating above the green world of Vega Prime. Commander Hyun-Ki walked slowly through the observation deck, watching the beautiful planet spin below him. The blue oceans sparkled like jewels, and the green forest looked soft as silk from this high up. He had been stationed here for 3 years and still loved watching the sunrise paint the world. In gold, Captain. So Young joined him at the big window holding 2 cups of hot coffee. She was his oldest friend and the best pilot in the human fleet. Her black hair was tied back neat and her uniform was clean and pressed like always. She handed him a cup and smiled as she watched the planet too. The people down. They are so happy, she said, pointing to the cities that looked like tiny dots of light. The vegans love having us here. They say we brought them music and stories they never heard before. Hyun-Ki nodded and took a sip of his coffee. It was true, the plant people of Vega Prime were the kindest aliens humans had ever met. 300 years ago, when humans first reached the stars, they were afraid they did not know if aliens would be friendly or dangerous. But the vegans were the first aliens. They met, and they were gentle as flowers. The vegans looked like tall people made of living wood. Their skin was brown and rough like tree bark. Their hair moved like leaves in the wind, and their eyes were soft green like new grass growing in spring. Vegans had never known war. They grew their food from the ground and made their homes from living trees that grew into the shapes they wanted. They sang to their plants to make them grow better, and their cities were like beautiful gardens that went up into the sky instead of cutting down the trees. When the first human ship landed on Vega Prime 50 years ago, the vegans came to meet them with flowers and fruit. They were not afraid, even though humans looked so different. The vegan leader, named Bloomheart, had touched the human captain on the arm with a gentle hand made of wood and said, "Welcome, friends. We have been waiting for you." Since then, humans and vegans had become like family. Human children learned to speak the vegan language that sounded like wind through leaves. Vegan children learned human songs and loved to hear stories about Earth. The 2 species shared everything they knew about science and art and how to live good lives. Hyun-Ki remembered when his own son, Dong-min, had visited the station 2 years ago. The boy was only 10, but he had made friends with a young vegan named Petal Dance. They played games together and shared their favorite foods. Dong-min taught Petal Dance how to play soccer, and Petal Dance showed Dong-min how to make flowers grow just by humming to them. "Look there," Captain So Young said, pointing to a transport ship rising from the planet. A new group of human teachers was going down to help in the vegan schools, and a group of vegan artists was coming up to the station to share their newest songs. The 2 species learned from each other every day. The human station orbiting Vega Prime was not a military base. It was more like a big school and cultural center. Human families lived there with their children who went to school with young vegans who came up from the planet. The hallways were filled with the sound of human children laughing and vegan youngsters making their musical humming sounds. In the science labs, human doctors worked with vegan healers to learn new ways to help sick people. The vegans knew how to make medicine from plants that could cure diseases humans had never been able to fix. The humans taught the vegans about human technology and how to build machines that could help them travel to other worlds. The dining halls were always full of both species eating together. Humans loved the sweet fruits that vegans grew, and the vegans enjoyed human cooking, especially the spicy foods that made their wooden faces turn darker. The children of both species sat together telling jokes and stories. Engineer Tae-ho was working in the lower levels of the station, fixing the water recycling systems. He was a quiet man who loved working with machines, but he also loved talking to the vegan engineers who came to help him. Their wooden hands were perfect for delicate work, and they knew how to make machines that would last for hundreds of years. His assistant Ye-jin was learning vegan engineering from an old vegan named Rootsinger. The ancient alien was over 300 years old, and his bark skin had grown thick and dark with age, but his mind was still sharp. He taught Ye-jin how to grow machine parts from special metal-eating plants that the vegans had developed. "The vegans are so peaceful," Ye-jin said as she watched Rootsinger carefully shape a new part for the water system. "They never fight about anything. They just talk until they agree or find a new way that makes everyone happy." Tai-ho nodded. It was true. In all the years humans had known the Vegans, they had never seen them angry or violent. Even their children never fight. Rootsinger said in his slow, deep voice that sounded like an old tree creaking in the wind. We learned long ago that anger only makes the plants grow sick. If we stay peaceful and happy, our world stays healthy and beautiful. But the peace that filled the Vega system was not felt everywhere in the galaxy, far away in the dark regions of space. The Korthak Empire was growing larger and hungrier every year. The Korthaks were not like humans or vegans, they were giant insects with hard shells, like armor and sharp claws that could cut through steel. Their eyes glowed red in their angular heads, and they had no mercy for anyone weaker than them. The Korthak homeworlds were dark and cold, covered with metal cities and weapon factories. The insect warriors lived only to fight and conquer. They believed that only the strong deserved to live, and that weak species should be destroyed or made into slaves. Every few years they would attack a new system and add it to their empire. Emperor Skullrender was the leader of all Korthaks. He was bigger and meaner than any of his warriors, standing 4 meters tall with claws that dripped poison. His shell was black as space and covered with scars from 1,000 battles. He sat on a throne made from the bones of his enemies and planned new wars every day. The Emperor had been watching the peaceful alliance between humans and Vegans for months. His spies brought him reports about the two species living together, sharing knowledge and caring for each other like family. It made him sick to see such weakness. Look at them, he hissed to his generals, as he watched recordings of human and Vegan children playing together. They waste their time on friendship and peace. They have forgotten how to be strong. His red eyes burned with hate as he watched the happy scenes. General Clawdeath stood beside the throne. His shell was silver, and he had killed more enemies than any other Korthak warrior. My Emperor, he said in his harsh, clicking voice. Should we attack them now while they are weak and unprepared? Not yet, Skullrender replied with a cruel smile that showed his razor teeth. Let them grow soft and happy. Let them forget that the galaxy can be dangerous. Then when they least expect it, we will remind them that only the strong survive. He began planning an attack that would shock the entire galaxy and end the golden age of peace forever. The attack came when the two suns of Vega Prime were rising together, painting the sky in beautiful colors of gold and pink. Commander Hyun-Ki was sitting in the station cafeteria sharing breakfast with Captain So-Young and her young daughter Min-Soo, who was visiting for the school holidays. The little girl was excited because she was going to spend the day with her best friend, a young vegan named Petalbright, who lived on the planet below. Mama, can we go see the flower gardens today? Min-Soo asked as she ate her cereal. So-Young smiled and brushed her daughter's hair. I think Petalbright wanted to show you the new singing trees that just bloomed. The little girl clapped her hands with joy. Suddenly, red lights started flashing all through the cafeteria, and a loud alarm began screaming. The peaceful morning sounds of children laughing and adults talking quietly disappeared as everyone looked up with fear. Communications Officer Wu Jin came running into the room, his face white with terror. Commander Hyun-Ki, sir, he shouted over the noise of the alarms. We have massive ships coming out of hyperspace right at the edge of the system. They are not responding to our messages for identification. Hyun-Ki jumped up from his chair so fast, it fell over. How many ships, he demanded as he ran toward the command center. So-Young grabbed her daughter and followed them with all the other humans in the cafeteria. On the big screens in the command center, they could see space around Vega Prime was no longer empty. Thousands of black ships were appearing like drops of oil in water. Each ship was huge and shaped like a giant insect with glowing red engines and weapon ports that looked like angry eyes. The ships kept coming and coming until the stars were hidden behind them. My God, whispered So-Young as she held Min-Soo close. There must be 5,000 of them. Who are they? What do they want? The answer came quickly. The lead ship sent a message that appeared on all the screens it showed. A giant insect warrior with black armor and red glowing eyes. Emperor Skullrender looked at them with hatred that made everyone in the command center step back from the screens. People of Vega Prime, he said, in a voice like grinding metal. You have grown weak with your peace and friendship. Today you learn that only the strong deserve to live. We are the Korthax, and we have come to cleanse the galaxy of weakness. Before anyone could respond, the Korthak fleet opened fire. Thousands of red energy beams shot out from their ships like deadly lightning. The first target was not the human space station, but the peaceful cities on the planet below, where moments before there had been beautiful gardens and singing trees. Now there were only explosions and fire. No Hyun-Ki shouted as he watched the planet burning. They are attacking civilians. The Vegans have no weapons, no shields. He turned to his communications officer. Send emergency messages to all human ships in the system. Tell them to protect the planet at all costs. But there were only 50 human ships in the Vega system, and most of them were small transport vessels or science ships, not warships. Against 5,000 Korthak battle cruisers, the humans looked like tiny insects trying to fight giants. Captain So Young kissed her daughter on the forehead and handed her to one of the other officers. Take Min-Soo to the emergency shelter, she ordered. Then she looked at Hyun-Ki with determination in her eyes. I am taking my ship down. There. Those people are counting on us. So Young's ship, the Soul Light, was a fast patrol vessel with light weapons. She knew it would not last long against the massive Korthak warships, but she did not care. The vegans were her friends, and she would not let them die alone. Her ship raced toward the planet with a dozen other human vessels following her. The space battle was hopeless from the start. The human ships fought with everything they had, but their weapons barely scratched the thick armor of the Korthak vessels. The insect warriors laughed as they destroyed human ship after human ship without taking any damage themselves. So Young managed to shoot down 3 Korthak fighters before her ship was hit by enemy fire. The Soul Light spun, out of control with half its hull torn away and engines failing. In her last message, she could barely speak because of the smoke filling her bridge. Tell my daughter, I love her. She whispered into her radio. Tell her that we tried to save our friends. Tell her that some things are worth dying for. The Soul Light exploded in a ball of fire and So Young was gone. On the planet below, the horror was even worse. The Korthaks were not just destroying military targets. They were hunting down every living thing they could find. Vegan cities that had taken centuries to grow were burning like torches. The gentle plant people ran through their forests calling for help. But there was nowhere to hide from the weapons that fell from the sky, like burning rain. Engineer Taeho had been working in the main vegan city when the attack started. He was helping install new water systems in a school full of vegan and human children. When the first explosions shook the building, he grabbed as many youngsters as he could carry and started running toward the emergency shelters. The vegan teacher named Leaf Song was trying to keep the children calm as they ran through the burning streets. Her wooden skin was blackened by smoke, and her leafy hair was singed. But she kept singing a gentle song to keep the little ones from crying. This way she called to Taeho. Follow me, I know where we can hide. But before they could reach safety, a huge shadow fell over them. A Korthak dropship landed in the street with a sound like thunder, and dozens of insect warriors poured out. Each Korthak soldier was 3 meters tall with armor that looked like the shell of a giant beetle. Their claws were longer than swords and sharp enough to cut through steel. Their red eyes glowed with hatred as they looked at the helpless children, both human and vegan, who cowered behind the adults. The lead warrior stepped forward and spoke in a voice like breaking glass. So these are the weak ones who think peace will protect them? He pointed one razor claw at the group. We will show you what strength really means. Please, begged Leaf Song as she spread her wooden arms to protect the children. They are just youngsters. They have done nothing wrong. Let them go and take me. Instead, the Korthak warrior tilted his insect head and made a sound that might have been laughter. Wrong, he clicked. Peace is a disease that makes species weak. The only cure is death. He raised his claws. Taeho watched in horror as the monsters killed, Leaf Song first cutting her down as she tried to shield the children with her own body. Then they turned on the little ones, both human and vegan, moving slowly to make the terror last longer. They were not killing for war or conquest. They were killing for fun. The engineer tried to jump out to help, but there were too many enemies and he had no weapons. He could only hide behind a pile of burning rubble and watch as every child was murdered. The Korthax laughed and made jokes as they did it, enjoying the screams and the fear in space. Commander Hyun-Ki watched his fleet die around him one by one. Every human ship was destroyed until only his flagship remained, the Soul. Pride was badly damaged, with fires burning on 3 decks and life support failing. But Hyun-Ki refused to retreat. Through his cracked view screen, he saw the final horror. The Korthak fleet had special weapons designed not to destroy planets, but to kill all life on them. Beams of sickly green light shot down from their ships, and wherever the light touched, every living thing turned to ash in seconds. The beautiful forests of Vega Prime withered and died. The singing trees fell silent. The flower gardens became fields of gray dust. Every vegan on the planet, every man, woman, and child died at the same moment. Their voices calling for help stopped as if someone had turned off a radio. Hyun-Ki felt his heart break as he realized the truth. Every vegan in the galaxy was dead. Every gentle plant person who had welcomed humans with friendship and trust had been murdered. The species that had never known war had been wiped out in a single day by creatures who killed for pleasure. The last human ship drifted powerless through the wreckage of what had been the most peaceful system in the galaxy. Around Hyun-Ki floated the ashes of worlds that had been green and beautiful just hours before. Now they were nothing but dead rocks covered in the gray dust that had once been his friends. Commander Hyun-Ki was alone in the darkness of space. His ship, the Soul Pride, drifted like a broken toy among the wreckage of the Vegan system. The beautiful worlds that had been full of singing trees and gentle people were now silent balls of rock covered in gray ash. The life support systems were failing, and he could feel the cold creeping into his bones. Blood ran down his face from a deep cut on his forehead, and his left arm hung useless at his side, broken when a piece of the ceiling had fallen on him during the last attack. His uniform was torn and stained, but he forced himself to crawl across the bridge toward the communications console. Every movement sent fire through his body, but he had to reach that radio. Around him floated pieces of human and Korthak ships mixed together in a cloud of metal and death. He could see the twisted remains of Captain So Young's vessel, the Soul Light spinning slowly in the void. She had died trying to protect children, and now those same children were nothing but dust on a dead world. The communications console was cracked and sparking, but it still worked. Hyun-Ki pulled himself up into the chair and began recording the most important message of his life. His hands shook as he entered the codes that would send his words across the galaxy to Earth. Every human world would hear what he was about to say. This is Commander Hyun-Ki of the Soul Pride. He began, his voice hoarse from breathing smoke. I am the last survivor of the human fleet in the Vegan system. The Korthak Empire has attacked us without warning. They have murdered every living thing in 7 star systems. He paused to cough up blood, then continued with growing anger. They did not come here to conquer territory or capture resources. They came here to kill for pleasure. I watched them hunt down children, both human and vegan, while laughing like it was a game. They used special weapons to turn every vegan in the galaxy into ash in the same moment. An entire species is extinct because these monsters thought it would be fun. Hyun-Ki's voice cracked with emotion as he remembered watching Leaf Song die trying to protect her students. The vegans welcomed us as friends 50 years ago. They shared their knowledge, their food, their homes. They taught our children to grow flowers with songs and showed us how to live in peace. They had no weapons because they trusted the galaxy to be civilized. They were wrong. He slammed his good fist on the console, making the damaged equipment spark and flicker. We failed them. We promised to protect them, and we failed. Every gentle soul who ever sang to a flower, every child who ever laughed while playing in their gardens is dead, because we were not strong enough to stop monsters. The ship shuddered around him as more systems failed, but Hyun-Ki kept recording. I am dying here alone in the wreckage of paradise. But before I die, I want every human to hear this. The Korthaks think they can murder innocents and face no consequences. They think the galaxy will forget this crime. They are wrong. His voice grew stronger, filled with a rage that seemed to give him new strength. I have seen what evil looks like. It has black armor and red eyes, and it kills children. For sport. It cannot be reasoned with or negotiated with. It can only be destroyed. Tell my wife Jihe that I love her. Tell my son Dongmin to remember the stories the Vegans told him about courage and friendship. Tell everyone on Earth that the age of peace is over. The console flickered and went dark for a moment, then came back on with a shower of sparks. We are going to war, Yunki said quietly. Not for conquest, not for territory, but for justice. Every Korthak who participated in this massacre must die. Every world that supported them must burn. We will not stop until their empire is ashes and their species is extinct, just like they made the Vegans extinct. He looked out through the cracked view screen at the gray remains of Vega Prime, where he had been so happy just yesterday morning. The beautiful blue and green world was gone forever, replaced by a dead rock that would never again know the sound of singing trees or children playing in flower gardens. The Vegans believed that love and friendship were the strongest forces in the universe. He whispered into the microphone. They were right, but they forgot that love can become something else when the things you love are destroyed. They forgot that humans remember their friends, and humans never forgive those who hurt them. The message ended there as Hyun-Ki finally lost consciousness. He died alone in the cold darkness, still holding the microphone that had carried his words across the galaxy. But his message traveled at light speed toward Earth, carrying with it a fire that would consume entire star systems. 3 days later, the message reached Earth. It arrived at the big communication station in Seoul during the morning rush hour when millions of people were going to work and children were walking to school. The technician who first heard it was a young woman named Park Min-jung, who had dreamed of becoming a teacher. Like Miss Leaf's song, Min-jung listened to the message 3 times before she understood what she was hearing. Then she ran to the emergency broadcast center and sent Hyun-Ki's words to every human world in the galaxy. Within hours, every man, woman, and child who spoke any human language had heard the recording. President Park Sung-ho was in his office meeting with trade representatives from 3 different alien species when his assistant burst through the door. "Sir, you need to hear this right now," she said, her face pale with shock. The president listened to the message in silence, then asked his alien guest to leave immediately. The emergency session of Earth's government was called within the hour. Every senator, every general, every important leader on the planet gathered in the Great Hall to hear Hyun-Ki's final message. When it ended, the room was silent for a full minute as grown leaders wept like children. General Nam Kyung-soo, the commander of Earth's military forces, stood up slowly. His face was wet with tears, but his eyes burned with cold fury. "The Korthaks made one mistake," he said in a voice that shook the building. "They hurt someone a human loves." Dr. Lee Hyejin, the planet's most famous scientist, raised her hand. "Sir, my research team has been working on theoretical weapons for years, projects we never built because we thought the galaxy was peaceful. I can have prototypes ready in 6 months. Factory manager Bae Min-woo stood up from the civilian section. "Mr. President, every manufacturing plant on Earth can be converted to military production within weeks. We built this planet. Once we can rebuild it as a fortress all across the planet." The same scene was repeated. Humans who had spent their lives growing food switched to making weapons. Doctors who saved lives began researching new ways to kill teachers, put down their books and picked up tools to build warships. Children too young to fight helped by taking care of families while their parents prepared for war. The transformation was frightening to watch. Peaceful humans who had not fought a real war in centuries remembered something ancient and terrible in their blood. They remembered why their ancestors had conquered every continent on Earth through pure determination and refusal to surrender. They remembered what happens when you hurt something. A human loves Admiral Yi Da-sam, Earth's greatest military strategist, stood before a room full of generals and admirals looking at star charts that showed the location of every Korthak world. "We are going to show the galaxy something it has forgotten," she said quietly. "We are going to remind every species why predators learned to fear humans on our homeworld." Within days, the word had spread to every human colony in the galaxy. Millions of people dropped everything they were doing and volunteered to fight. Shipbuilders worked around the clock. Weapons designers created horrors that had never been seen before. And in every factory, in every laboratory, in every military base, humans whispered the same promise. We remember the vegans. We remember their songs and their laughter and their trust. We remember how they died, calling our names, believing we would save them and we will make this right. Earth became a world of fire and steel in just 30 days. The peaceful blue planet that had been known for its gardens and universities transformed into the greatest war machine the galaxy had ever seen. Every city echoed with the sound of hammers and welding torches as humans built weapons with the fury of broken hearts. Admiral Yi Dasom stood in the center of Earth's new war room, a massive underground complex that had been carved out of solid rock beneath the mountains of Korea. The walls were covered with screens showing every human world in the galaxy, and each one glowed with the same message. More ships ready. More weapons built. More soldiers trained. Status report. She commanded, her voice calm, but her eyes burning with cold fire. General Nam Kyung-soo stepped forward, holding data tablets filled with numbers that would have seemed impossible just weeks ago. Ma'am, we have converted every shipyard in human space to military production. The orbital facilities around Earth are launching a new destroyer every 6 hours. The colonies are sending us raw materials faster than we can use them. He paused, then smiled grimly. Every human world has the same message for us. Build more, kill faster, make them pay, doctor. Choi Soo-jin entered the war room carrying blueprints for weapons that had never existed before. Her team had worked for 18 days straight, surviving on coffee and the burning need to make the Korthax suffer. She had dark circles under her eyes, but her mind was sharper than ever. Admiral, we have solved the power problem, she announced, spreading her plans on the main table. Our new fusion cores can charge weapons 3 times faster than anything the Korthax have, and we have developed something special. She pointed to a schematic that showed a missile the size of a building. We call it the Vegan's Revenge. One shot can crack a planet's surface. But the real weapon was not ships or missiles. It was the change that had come over humanity itself. The gentle people who had shared poetry with plant aliens now worked day and night to build instruments of destruction. Every human alive had seen the same images: vegan children turning to ash while monsters laughed, and those images had awakened something ancient and terrible in the human soul. Factory worker Jang Yu-jin had not left her post in 48 hours. Her hands were cut and bleeding from handling hot metal, but she kept building ammunition. Her daughter had been friends with a young vegan named Petalsong who used to send her drawings of starflowers. Now that gentle alien child was dead, and Yujin would not rest until every Korthak joined her. For Petalsong, she whispered as she loaded another shell into the production line for all of them. The same scene played out on every human world. From the farming colonies of New Texas to the research stations of Europa, every person had the same burning goal: make the monsters pay. Engineer Song Haemin worked 20 hours a day designing new ship engines that could travel faster than anything in Korthak space. They think speed and numbers will save them, he told his team as they tested another prototype. They are about to learn that humans don't fight to win territory. We fight to destroy our enemies completely. Sergeant Lee Jun-ho volunteered for every dangerous mission that came up. The military had created special assault units for soldiers who wanted to fight Korthaks face-to-face instead of hiding behind ship weapons. These volunteers trained with weapons that no civilized species had ever imagined building. Sir, permission to lead the first ground assault, he asked General Nam during training. The general looked at the young soldier and saw the same expression on every volunteer's face. They were not afraid to die. They were afraid they might not kill enough enemies before they fell. Pilot Kim Hye-won practiced flying attack runs through asteroid fields until she could navigate them blindfolded. Her squadron called themselves the Vagan's Tears, and each pilot had painted the names of dead alien friends on their ships. She flew 17 hours a day until her hands bled from gripping the controls. The Korthaks will learn what happens when you make humans cry, she said as she checked her weapons for the 100th time. We are going to turn their homeworlds into graveyards. The transformation frightened other alien species who had known humans as peaceful traders and teachers. The Galactic Council sent emergency delegations to Earth begging humans to reconsider their plans for war. Ambassador Rex Prime of the Stellar Federation met with President Park Sung-ho in the presidential palace. Please, he begged, his 4 arms spread wide in A gesture of peace. The Council is willing to negotiate with the Korthax. We can demand compensation for the destroyed colonies. We can create a buffer zone to keep them away from peaceful species. There must be a way to solve this without more. Bloodshed President Park looked at the alien diplomat with eyes like frozen fire and played Hyun-Ki's message, letting Rex Prime hear the screams of dying Vegans and the laughter of their killers. Compensation, he asked, when the recording ended. How do you compensate for genocide, Ambassador? The Vegans are extinct. Every man, woman, and child of their entire species was murdered for entertainment. What payment brings back a dead child? What negotiation restores a destroyed culture? The president stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the shipyards where new warships were being born every hour. The age of peace is over. Ambassador, the Korthax chose war when they killed innocents for sport. Now they will learn what war really means. When humans fight it, Rex Prime tried one more time. But surely you don't mean to destroy their entire empire. The Korthax species numbers in the billions. Most of them had nothing to do with the attack on Vega. Prime President Park turned back to face him. Most of them cheered when they heard about it. Most of them celebrated the extinction of a gentle species. Most of them believed that might makes right, and that the weak deserve to die. He walked to his desk and picked up a photograph of vegan children playing with human students in a school on Vega Prime. This is what the Korthax destroyed. This is what they thought was funny to kill. Now they will learn that humans remember their friends and we never forgive those who murder them. Alien Ambassador left Earth that same day carrying a message to the Galactic Council. Humanity was no longer interested in peace or negotiation. They had declared total war on the Korthak Empire, and nothing would stop them until every insect warrior was dead. Dr. Choi Soo-jin worked in her laboratory surrounded by weapons that looked like they belonged in nightmares. Her team had created bombs that could boil away atmospheres, missiles that could shatter moons, and energy weapons that burned hotter than stars. The Korthax think they understand violence, she said as she calibrated a new planet-killer weapon. They think because they conquered weak species, they know what war looks like. They have never fought someone who refuses to surrender. They have never faced humans who fight for love instead of conquest. Admiral Yi Da-som studied intelligence reports about Korthak military bases and found their weakness arrogance. The insect warriors had won so many easy victories against peaceful species that they had forgotten war could be dangerous for the attacker, as well as the defender. They spread their fleets thin because they don't expect real resistance, she told her staff. We will teach them that humans are not like other species. When we go to war, we don't fight to win. We fight to eliminate the enemy completely. In 6 months, humanity had built the largest battle fleet in galactic history. 2,000 warships armed with weapons that had never been imagined before. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had one goal: make the Korthax pay for what they did to innocents. Captain No. In Young stood on the bridge of the new flagship Vagan's Memory, looking at her crew. Every face showed the same expression, calm determination mixed with burning rage. These were not soldiers anymore. They were avengers, and they would not stop until justice was complete. The fleet is ready, Admiral, she reported to Yi Da-som. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier is prepared for war. The crews are asking only one question. When do we make them pay? Soon, Admiral Yi Da-som replied as she looked at the star charts showing Korthak space. Very soon. The galaxy is about to learn what happens when you hurt someone a human loves. The human war fleet moved through hyperspace like ghosts in the night. 2,000 ships carrying weapons that could crack planets and crews that burned with the fury of broken hearts. Admiral Yi Da-som stood on the bridge of the flagship Vagans, memory watching the stars blur past as they traveled toward their first target. For 6 months she had studied every detail of Korthak military tactics, reading reports from species they had conquered, and analyzing the wreckage of destroyed fleets. She had found their fatal weakness: pride. The insect warriors believed they were unbeatable because they had never faced an enemy that refused to surrender. All ships prepare for battle, she commanded into her communicator. Remember what we are fighting, for remember the children who died screaming. Remember the gentle people who welcomed us with flowers and songs. Remember that we are not here to conquer. We are here to make them pay. The first target was Korthak Colony. 7, a military outpost on the edge of their empire. The system held 500 enemy warships and 3 billion insect warriors who had celebrated when news of the Vegan massacre reached them. Now they were about to learn what human justice looked like. Captain No In-young commanded the destroyer Soul's Vengeance, and her crew had volunteered for the most dangerous missions. Every person on her ship had lost someone in the Vegan system. Her weapons officer Park Ji-woo had been engaged to a human teacher who died, trying to protect Vegan children. Her engineer Kim Tae-young had watched his best friend turn to ash when the Korthak death rays struck the planet. "We are approaching the target system," Captain In-young announced to her crew. "The enemy has detected us and is sending the usual threatening message. They are demanding our surrender." The main screen flickered and showed a massive Korthak general with black armor covered in spikes. His red eyes glowed with hatred as he looked at the human fleet. "This is General Clawdeath of the Korthak Imperial Navy," he clicked in his harsh insect voice. "Weak mammals, you have made a mistake coming here. Surrender now and we will kill you quickly. Fight us and we will hunt you across the stars." Captain In-young smiled coldly as she opened a channel to respond. "General Clawdeath, this is Captain No In-young of Earth. I have a message for you from the children of Vega Prime." She nodded to her weapons officer. "Fire. Everything." The human fleet opened fire with weapons the galaxy had never seen before. Beams of pure energy that burned brighter than stars, missiles that could shatter asteroids, and plasma cannons that fired bolts of contained lightning. The Korthak ships that had seemed so massive and threatening suddenly looked small and fragile. The battle lasted 3 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The new human weapons cut through Korthak armor like paper, and their ships moved faster than anything the insects had ever fought. Where the enemy expected fear, they found rage. Where they expected retreat, they found attacks that never stopped. General Clawdeath's flagship was the last enemy vessel still fighting. His ship was burning and half his crew was dead, but he sent one final transmission to the human fleet. "You cannot defeat the entire Korthak Empire," he screamed. "We have 1,000 worlds. We have 10 million ships. You are only 2,000 vessels, Captain." In-young responded by firing her ship's main weapon directly into the enemy. "Bridge watch and learn," she said quietly as Clawdeath's ship exploded in a ball of fire. But the real shock came after the battle ended. Instead of trying to capture territory or take prisoners, the humans did something that horrified every species. Watching the human fleet surrounded the planet where the Korthak colony was located and fire.